The most wonderful time of the year. Okay, so I know it's only November, but people have been requesting that I do more holiday card tutorials this year. So I'm making a series of it where I'm going to be doing different kinds of patterns and color palettes. And today we are starting with this extremely fun gouache and watercolor tutorial. So let's jump right in. Okay, so to start, I'm just going to go through my materials. I am using B cold press watercolor paper today that I just cut into two because we're doing two cards. I have my Winsor Newton Professional Watercolors in my palette. I have my Princeton snap brushes in a size 2 and a size 6, as well as this Princeton Select brush that's kind of just like a flat filbert, it's called, brush. You don't need it, but it's just something I'm going to be using. A pencil and a kneaded eraser. And then we're also going to be using gouache for this. So this is going to be a mixed media piece. I'm going to be doing the gingerbread with watercolor. So I'm only going to be using burnt umber out of my watercolors for this. And then for the gouache, I just have the ceramic palette, and these are the colors that I mixed before. So I'm going to be using a tiny bit of primary yellow, primary red, permanent white, primary blue. I think that's all the colors that I'm using. I may have also used permanent rose. I can't really remember, but we're gonna see what happens when we mix. So these are the 5 colors that I'm gonna be using of gouache. I'm gonna be using burnt umber, and I think we can just get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is sketch out my drawing. So we're gonna be doing a cute little gingerbread house, and then a cute little gingerbread man. So we want to make this simple, but very cute. So I'm just going to be doing 2 kind of diagonal lines. Like that, and it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to be making like a pentagon shape for this house. Okay, so 2 diagonal lines, just slightly slanted, and then a little bit smaller here. And then we're going to be doing the roof of the gingerbread house here, like that. And just do a little boop, like that. Okay, and you can erase any of those extra lines you may have done. But the great thing about using gouache is that it's an opaque medium, so you don't really have to erase your lines if you don't want to. Okay, so there's our gingerbread house and then our gingerbread man. So let's start with a head. And then I'm gonna have an arm come right out. These guys don't really have necks. One can be like up, like woohoo, like that. One can be coming down. And then come right under where those armpits would be. And then just a little curve to bring it down. I might even do those arms a bit smaller. I don't know yet. Yeah, I feel they're a little thick. Come down, do the little feet. Let's make these a little bit thinner. Like that. Like that. Okay, so now erase any marks that you don't need. And kind of erase where that circle connected to the neck, because we don't want that. And then we can start painting with watercolor. So I'm going to use my size 6 brush. And I'm just going to go right into my burnt umber, make sure it's all nice and wet. And I'm going to do a light wash over the whole house, because all the detail on the house will be with gouache. So we can, like I said, it's an opaque medium. You can paint right over top and you don't have to worry about being, you know, working light to dark, you can just layer those light colors on top of darker colors, like this brown, which is one of the reasons why I'm enjoying painting with gouache lately. Now, if you don't want to use gouache for this project, you don't have to at all, okay? So what you're going to need to do that's different is you're just going to have to plan out where you're going to be putting the other colors on top that might be lighter. So for the door and the little candy decorations, you're going to actually have to draw that and then do the gingerbread brown around those so you can place those watercolor colors on white paper and not over brown watercolor, if that makes sense. Okay, so you're just going to map out where all those little candy bits are gonna go. That's a lot darker than I anticipated. It's fine. And then just do your watercoloring around it. But I really like the look of this matte kind of bright gouache look, especially for this little card design that I'm doing, just because it's so playful and fun. I just wanted to make sure it was nice and bright. Just trying to make sure it's even. My paper is drying fast today. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back in with my watercolor and just go a little bit darker around the edges. Okay. I'm gonna do a little bit of a curvy line because we're going to be doing white over here, and I want it to be like the icing is going to be casting a shadow. It's a little bit darker and around the edges. And I might be I'm going to do a candy up here, so I'm just going to do kind of like a little shadow around where that candy is going to sit on top of. So like just a little circle here, and the candy will be right in the middle. There's going to be a door, so I'm just going to put a little darker shadow there. Okay, and then I'm going to do a little candy outline here. So I'm just gonna create it with my brown, do a little swirl, and then we're gonna do white on top. And this will act as its shadow. I went the wrong way. It's all good, hold on. Smooth it out. Go back. There we go. Okay, and this will act as its shadow. You'll see it all come together if this is a little confusing right now. We can move on to this gingerbread guy. The reason why I'm painting on a cardboard is because we're going to be going right to the edges with the gouache. I wanted to tape it down, but at the same, I don't know if I'm going to tape it down. I didn't want there to be a border because there's already going to be a border when I place this paper on top of a blank card. So see, there's already going to be a white border, and I didn't want there to be another white border. I kind of wanted it to go right to the edges, but we'll see. I haven't decided completely yet. Okay, I'm just going to move that out of the way for a second. Okay, let's do our little gingerbread man here. Again, nice light wash. That's not light, of burnt umber. Let's just spread that color out. And again, if you're not using gouache and you're using watercolor, map out where you're going to be putting the icing. So if your icing, you're going to have like little white icing detail on here, and you don't want to do like an opaque gouache over top, you can just leave that part blank and then go around it with the watercolor. But I do know that a lot of people do end up having white gouache, or if you have like a white gel pen, you could always do the icing on top of it, the brown after with that. If you have white watercolor, you can, or ink, you can just try and make it really opaque by using a lot of it for the icing bits. Totally up to you. There's so many ways you can do this. But if you want to add like a little scarf or something, or buttons, you're going to have to block out that areas and just paint the brown around it, so you're not going over top of the brown with a lighter color, because it won't show up. Okay, I'm just trying to make it a little bit more even. Okay. Now I'm going to grab some more darker color, and I'm just going to go around the edge of our gingerbread man. Get that darker shadow going. Like that. And then again, remember, I'm going to be doing the icing, so I'm just going to create those little shadow lines with some darker brown. We're going to have some icing over here, so I'm just going to do a little swirl, 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 swirl. There's going to be some buttons here, so I'm going to do some shadow for the buttons. Maybe a little bit for the eyes, like that. And then let's give the guy a scarf. So I'm just going to do a little shadow here where the scarf would be. Okay, so now let's let our gingerbread house and our little man dry, and we're going to mix up some gouache colors for our color palette. Okay, so I just have a scrap piece of paper here. Here's my palette. It's a ceramic palette. You don't need a ceramic palette. I just have one. I got it off Amazon, and I'll link it below. Okay, so let's grab our colors for gouache and start mixing. So, color palette ideas. Honestly, I get a lot of ideas from Pinterest. I'm just going to show you my Pinterest board really quickly. I have a whole color palette board. Okay, and I find it so helpful. So, I'm trying not to get much of a glare. But yeah, so if you look up like holiday color palettes or just any kind of color palettes, there's so many different options here, and this can definitely help you with your planning. So I was kind of going for this vibe of this, I don't know if you can see it, the light kind of teal blue and the red, and then I'm going to add pink to it, and then the brown for the gingerbread. But there's just so many ideas, so I definitely suggest looking for color palette ideas when you do this. Okay, so we're just remixing these colors. We're going to be using primary red, okay, and this I found was a bit too dark for what I wanted, so I honestly just added like the tiniest bit of white just to make it a little bit brighter, and it kind of ends up like this like dark pink, which is kind of cool, but I want it a bit more red. Then, oh, this isn't permanent rose, this is opera pink. I don't know if that's what I used. I don't know. Anyway, for the teal color, I used primary blue, like that, with a touch of primary yellow, so it turns green, right? And then a bunch of white. Okay. And then for the peach color, I used a bunch of white. It's always good to have multiple white colors on hand. I think it was the opera rose. Was it? I don't even know. It's really bright. I did this like a couple days ago, so I don't really actually know. And then a tad bit of yellow. Okay, so let's start mixing and see if these colors match what we're going for. Okay, so I'm gonna mix the blue and the yellow first. I'm gonna add some water just to thin out the paint a bit. And then I'm gonna start bringing in the white. I feel like I might need a bit more yellow. And if it's really thick, just keep adding a bit of water. I want a nice teal color. I think I want a little bit more yellow. Yeah, like a minty color. Okay. And I don't want to waste all this paint on my brush right now, so I'm actually going to go right into painting using some of it before I mix those other colors. As I have so much on my brush right now, I don't want to get rid of it. Let me just swatch it, make sure it's what I want. Yes, it is. I love that color. And I'm going to be doing the whole background of this guy with this teal color. So I'm just going to dip it in my water just to spread it out a bit. And we're going to cover the whole background. So you can also achieve this color with watercolor. by doing the same kind of thing. Blue, maybe, I don't know what blue, maybe a turquoisey kind of blue with a tad bit of yellow would work. And we can paint right off the edge of this. Tad bit of yellow. And then for watercolor, because I don't usually, add white. But if you did want to make it a bit more opaque, you could add white watercolor or even white gouache to make it look a bit more gouache if it's watercolor. But if you don't have any of those, you could just use more water to make it lighter. That's how I lighten up my watercolors. But I love how creamy, I hate that word creamy, but it's true, how creamy gouache is. Like, look at this. And it dries so nice and matte. It's so bold, I love it. Carefully around our little gingerbread guy's head. Just trying to make it as smooth as possible. And if you haven't watched my other tutorial on gouache, just know that the more water you add, the more transparent it becomes. So you want to find a consistency, like I said, that's kind of creamy. So you don't want it too thick where like right out of the tube, it's a bit harder to spread it and work with that. You want to find a consistency that it's not too watery where it drips everywhere, but it's like a nice thick paint that kind of moves. So just kind of play around with the water and paint until you find a consistency that's easy to work with. Okay, so there we go. There's our background for our gingerbread dude. Okay, I'm gonna put this guy to the side and we are going to mix the color for this background. And for this one, we are doing the pretty peachy pink color. So let's mix our pink and our, ooh, that might be too orangey. Oh, maybe not. Did I nail it the first time? Sweet. So I just added a bit of water, again, making that nice creamy consistency. Cute. And there we go. And let's paint the background of this guy now. Another thing to keep in mind with gouache, because there's lots of things to learn about gouache. The color that it dries is sometimes darker than what you put down. I think it's darker, or is it lighter? I don't know. Let's see how it dries and I'll tell you. But it may change depending on how it dries. So just keep that in mind, that if it dries and it's a little bit darker or lighter, you're like, what? You may have to adjust your mixture again and go over it. Totally up to you though. If you want to go over it, you don't have to. But yeah, just keep in mind that it does change a little bit once it's dried. Okay, I'm gonna leave a little bit of space up here for the icing that's gonna go on top. You could just paint white over top of it. Well, let's swatch this color too. I would usually swatch my colors first before I use them, but I've already mixed these previously, so I knew kind of the palette I was going for, but I would definitely mix and swatch before you plan if you're trying out a new color palette, just to make sure they look good together. But I mixed and I didn't want to, yeah, I think it dries darker. Sorry, my brain's all over the place. Just looking at how the gingerbread guy's kind of drying and I'm like, oh, it's a little bit darker, but that's okay. You could always add more white if you needed to. I think I'll probably just leave it anyway. Oh, I think what I was saying before was I was leaving a little bit of white space for the icing on top. You don't have to at all. The white will cover the pink, but I just wanted to. I don't know why, I just wanted to. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we're gonna wait for all of these to completely dry before we continue, and then we will come right back. Okay, so the background's still drying a bit, but we can continue a bit more because our gingerbread part is dry and that's kind of what counts. Okay, so we can start by doing, let's do the white icing parts. Okay, so I'm just gonna throw some white there. And I'm thinking the tiniest bit of black. I want to make a really light gray for some of the icing because I'm going to do some whiter highlights on it after. So I just want it slightly darker. Okay, and it won't really look like it's gray icing, but the highlights on the icing will make it pop a bit more. Okay, so there we go. There's our icing. Just gonna add a bit more water. Gonna follow on the top of the roof like this. And then I'm just gonna take some of that off. Do some squiggly bits like it's dripping down, following kind of that squiggly pattern we did with our brown for the shadows. So already that brown looks like it's just a shadow being cast. Like that. Okay, and then I'm gonna grab my smaller brush and we're gonna do some candy and icing on the house. I'm gonna move this guy out of my way. Okay, so this we're gonna do one of those little mint candies. So I'm gonna start off with this dot in the middle, and then I'm gonna do a little curve, oops, like this, curve like that, curve like this. 5. Let's do 5 of them. Like that, and like that. And then we'll add the red in later, okay? Let's do our little icing bits around those swirls. So we're seeing that, what's it called? Shadow. Cute, like that. And then I'm gonna do like a little candy stripe kind of color around the door. So I'm just gonna do some little lines like this, and then we'll fill in the bits after with probably red. This is starting to fade a little bit, so I'm just gonna go over a bit more. Okay, if you need to do another coat of the white, you totally can. Again, it dries a little bit darker, so this is looking a little bit more gray. I'm gonna do more highlight on it after with just pure white. And then I think for this door, I'm gonna be doing this teal color. So I'm just gonna use my flat like filbert brush for this, but you don't have to. Okay, so let's grab this color, and I'm just going to fill in the inside of this door. Like so. And then I'm just gonna leave that right now and let those parts dry before I add the next color. Let's move on to our little gingerbread dude here. Okay, so for him, let's start with our, excuse me, our white icing. Again, so most of this guy is white. The icing on it. Do a little curve right there around that little brown shadow. Let's do some nice big eyes. And then a mouth like that. Cute. Do some icing down here. You look so cute. Yeah, let's just do some white buttons. keeping it simple, like so. And then we're gonna do the scarf. Same kind of candy stripe pattern, so let's do it with this pink and then the red. Still using my small brush. We're just gonna start by doing stripes. I think that's good. Then I might even do 2 little dots on the end of the mouth for like little cheeks. So cute. Like that. Very cute. Okay. And then we'll wait for that guy to dry. Okay, so it's a bit more dry now. Let's add this red color. A little bit of white. A lot more red, so it's like a bright red. Deep red, but also kind of bright and almost pinky. Okay, and we're gonna fill in the rest of this candy, mint candy swirl kind of thing. So just going in between the best you can. So cute. Okay. Then let's do some stripes in between here. And they don't have to completely cover. It's a gingerbread house. Doesn't have to be perfect. Like that. And then let's do some cute little candies on the house. So I'm thinking maybe like little jubes. We'll do like a little pattern of the mint ones. And red. Oh, no. Okay. I'm gonna have to cover that up. Good thing about gouache is you can cover it up because it's opaque. Okay. Silly me. That, and I'm just gonna cover it just a little bit. See? See? Gouache. It's awesome. Look how awesome that is. You can just fix things so easily. Cool. Okay, now I'm gonna grab the mint color. I think I can fix it. Okay, we're gonna wait for that little bit to dry where I messed up and just do a couple more candies. So I'm just gonna grab a little bit of pink. Maybe I'll do some cute little dots like that. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take some pure white, just a little bit, and I'll show you how to make those highlights on our white icing. So just this will be pure white. And we're just gonna do some little highlights where that icing would be kind of taking the light like that. And then you can do it on the candy part too. A little bit less on the red, but just little highlights like that. It just makes it pop a little bit. And then even on this icing too. Just do some brighter white bits on some of the curves. Even on some of these. You can go around it if you like. See what that looks like. I think I'm gonna do another little candy on the door for the doorknob. Very small little curves. Like that, so cute. There we go. All is not lost. So cute. And I'm just going to do a little bit of white highlight on those little candies on the top, but I'm just gonna wait for it to completely dry. Let's move on to this guy. Okay, let's start with our bright white icing. So just the pure white. Do some highlights, especially on these buttons and the eyes. It just makes it pop a little bit more. Oh, I almost dropped my paintbrush. This guy doesn't need an awful lot. And then we're just doing the scarf, the in-betweens here. So cute. And then if you wanted to do a little bit more of a step further, just to make some of the parts really pop a bit more, I'm gonna bring back my watercolors, especially for this gingerbread guy. I think the shadow on that one is pretty good, but I'm just going to take a little bit more burnt umber and just go around the eyes a little bit for a bit more of a shadow. Maybe underneath the mouth. Okay. Pick a side of where that shadow would be cast. So I'm going on the right side of these things. Just makes it a little bit sharper. And then you can even go around the edge too of the gingerbread man if you want, just to sharpen it a little bit. Looking at it again, I might just put a little bit of shadow on this one, under some of those little bits here. Let's take that little last bit of our white and then we're done. We're just adding a little highlight on all these candies, just a little tiny dash. And there you go. So now if you want, you can take a card. There's like these pre-made cards at Michael's, or even the dollar store I think has them, and you can just glue gun them on top. You can even outline it in a bit of gold and you should be ready to go. I think they're so cute. Let me know below if this is a style you guys like, if you enjoyed the video, and that's about it. Thank you all so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye.